do you ever look at it and go, oh, look, if I'd have had that career 15 years later, I'd have been set for life? Sorry, have I just made you think that for the first time?
Yeah, probably. No, yeah. Me and Jimmy started arguing on the pitch, and we started fighting on the pitch, and we had to be split up by our own players.
That's not why I asked the question about Jimmy Bullard, but I'm glad I asked it now because I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually had to be split up on the football pitch. You know, a bit like the Lee Bowyer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Somebody had to grab me on the pitch, so I was going to kill him, and my temper was still raging. And about 5 minutes later, I got a red card for absolutely smashing somebody because I was still so angry at Jimmy. Yeah.
So you're trying to tell me that the red card you got in Wigan versus Crystal Palace was not your fault, it was Jimmy Bullard's fault.
It was Jimmy Bullard. And I just remember it being one of them days where everything just didn't go right for me, honestly. And obviously at Upton Park, there's like 38,000 people there. You know what I mean? I kept giving the ball away, one on goal, penalty. I think I got man of the match for them. I think they give me man of the match. Honestly, it was outrageous. For a lot of my career, or half of my career, I was kind of like in a very dark place a little bit.
Right.
Even during my career and stuff. And a lot of the things you talk about, all these 300 and odd games, and not many people know about this, is that because I was in such a dark place at certain times, I don't remember most of them games.
Hello, and welcome to the Lock-In podcast with me, Mike, and him over there is Baz. Say hello, Baz.
Hello, Baz.
Lovely stuff. That's become a bit of a thing now, hasn't it? You're saying hello, Baz. I like it.
I can't not do it now.
It's amazing. It's amazing. That's why I always say hello, Baz, because I do like it. For those of you who haven't seen us or heard us before, this is me and Baz in our virtual pub called the Brace of Reelings, and we are just chatting to whoever's turned up at our table. Now, bit of inside knowledge here is that we called this the Lock-In because it's just me and Baz in the pub on our own. So our vision of that was we were still in the pub after it had closed. Full disclosure, it's 9:30 in the morning. We've never done one this early, and we had no intention of this called the Lock-In because me and Baz are the only people in the pub because we got here before the cleaners. But that's where we are today.
Imagine if this had been a Lock-In, though.
There were two ways we could go with this. We could have been drinking all night and turned up, but out of respect for our guest, I figured it would be best if both of us could speak. So, I've got a pint of blackcurrant and a black coffee, and here we are. This is very strange, but I'm willing to embrace it.
This may be a first as well. That I've got a coffee as well, so
it's unbelievable. It's just uncharted territory. Let's see where it goes. So. We do have a guest on today, and that guest is a guy called Jason Jarrett. Now, if you are expecting the former NASCAR driver Jason Jarrett, I'm afraid it's not that Jason Jarrett.
I googled that as well.
Yeah, if you are hoping that it's Las Vegas's foremost Michael Jackson impersonator Jason Jarrett, it's not him either. But do you know what? Our Jason Jarrett's better than that because he's from Bury. Anyway, so we'll bring him on. It's Mr. Jason Jarrett. Hello, Jason.
How you doing? You all right?
How's it going, mate? You right? So for those that don't know, Jay is the former Blackpool, Wrexham, Bury, Wigan, Stoke, Norwich, Plymouth, Preston, Hull, Leicester, QPR, Brighton and Hove Albion, Port Vale, Oldham, FC Halifax Town, Airbus UK, Chester and Salford City player.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, mate, that's more clubs than Tiger Woods. That's incredible. So what I was thinking about here was that either suggests that a lot of managers didn't like you, or the flip side is that a lot of managers did because you got signed a lot of times as well.
I think it's the second one. The second one, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like loads of managers rated you and they couldn't wait to get their hands on you until you were available. That's the one, isn't it, mate?
Definitely. A lot of them with loan deals, to be honest.
Right. So I was about to start writing those down, then I realised that I just wouldn't have time.
It's okay, because handily, we don't often get people on here who've got a Wikipedia page, but it makes research a hell of a lot easier. Wikipedia and YouTube being available does make things a lot easier. So For those that are like for everybody's benefit, I'm saying this like it's a confession, but it's not a confession. I am a Bury fan, and I've been a Bury fan since I was 4. We'll come on to what's going on with Bury at the moment later on, but I remember Jay playing for Bury because I'm probably about 4 or so years older, so 4 or 5 years older, so I was probably mid-20s. And it was a good time because it was a good. I mean, the club was going through tough times, but I really enjoyed kind of my teens and mid-20s watching Bury. But the thing is with Jay is he's a Bury lad. I remember Jason playing for Bury when I was in my mid-20s, and the great thing, do you know what? I didn't even know it at the time, but Jason is from Bury. He's a Bury fan and played for Bury. So, like I said, I married a woman who was brought up in the northeast, so kind of Newcastle's my second team, and Shearer is obviously the epitome of that. Could have gone to United, and all my mates are United fans, and they're always like, "Oh, he could have won this, he could have won that," but he wanted to play for his boyhood team. So the first question is just kind of like, how did that feel? How did it feel? And obviously, you'd supported Bury all those years, and then to play for him, pull on the shirt and play for them must have been something special.
Yeah, because I was actually, as much as being a fan as well, I was brought up round the corner as well. So I lived like 5 minutes away from the ground, and I used to ball boy for the club and stuff, as well as actually go and watch the club as a kid. And even in the summer, I think the cemetery end. Yeah, me and my friends used to climb over the fence at the cemetery end in pre-season when nobody's on the pitch and play on the pitch and stuff as kids and stuff like that. So we used to sneak on, and the goals were actually still on, which was quite weird. And yeah, so Bury's always been a special place for me, kind of thing. And to play for him was fantastic. It really, really was.
I had no idea that your first time playing on Gig Lane was illegal.
Yeah, we used to play Wembley on it. There's about 8 of us, and I can't believe there was like no ground staff or anything. We got away with it for like a whole summer once, for like 6 weeks in the summer holidays. And every morning we'd turn up, we'd climb over the wall, expecting someone to kick us off, and nobody ever did. So that was like one of my first memories. And yeah, like I said, I used to ball boy for him, and he used to go and watch him regularly. So to play for him and to score there and to be part of the club, yeah, it was like a bit of a dream. Yeah.
Is it the type of club that would have had the same groundsman from then to when you played for him, or had it changed?
I think so. I think a lot of the people who work at Bury have been there for a number of years. Even when I went back, like now, at AFC Bury and stuff, a lot of the people are still the same. And a lot of people, when I used to go and watch them after I'd left, are still there. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of them clubs where you're there for life. The people who work there.
Yeah, I just kind of wondered whether you would have told him this story years later, and he'd gone, "Oh, you're that little shit that used to ruin the pitch."
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. I don't think he knows, but he'll find out very soon anyway. Yeah.
When you signed for Bury, I love the fact that he was like, "Hold on a minute, you're the reason I struggled to keep this pitch in decent condition over the summer, pal. I need to work with you."
Yeah, definitely. The 6-yard box got ruined. It was brilliant. We used to play headers and volleys and everything. If you remember some of them games as kids, and Wembley singles, Wembley doubles. So yeah, we definitely we should have been there, but like I said, it was good times.
When you played for Bury, I remember it fondly. I mean, we were, for those that don't know, Bury have been skint a lot of times, and we'll come on to ultimately the biggest amount of skin that folded the club. But at the time, Bury was skint, and that's one of the reasons that you had to leave. Because being best player at the club, you were the most valuable, certainly. The club had to cash in on you. But as a result of us being skint at that time, I was looking through the team sheets and just doing a bit of research for this, and looking through the team sheets of when you played for Bury. And there's 4 players on that list that I knew from the pub. You knew from the Rose and Crown in Bury, and it's just kind of like, because we were skint, there was Lee Connell, Matty Barras, Martin Forrest. Yeah. Who else was there? Anyway, there was 4 of them that were friends of friends, and I was out on the piss with them in the Rose before they made it into the Bury team, and it was just bizarre. I was seeing these names coming up, but it kind of leads me on to the fact that it feels to me like that was kind of the last generation of real football before footballers had to worry about, footballers can't go out on a Saturday night now because everyone's got an iPhone and they're going to stick it on social media. And, if the boss knows you're out when you shouldn't be out, then you'll be, and all that kind of stuff. There's a huge amount more pressure on that side of things now for professional footballers. But it feels like you were kind of, you were the last kind of generation of ones that could kind of do normal things and act normally with your mates.
Yeah, definitely was. We probably did it too much, to be honest. And I think looking back, them lads you're talking about probably wish you hadn't done it as much, because it was very much a culture of, if you won on a Saturday, you'd be out regardless, and you'd be out as a team or out as many lads as possible. So basically, even if you won or lost, really, even if you lost, you'd still be out, kind of thing, and it wouldn't be an issue. You've seen the lads in the Rose and Crown, that was a regular thing. And I think there's another pub in Bury called the Wellington, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, we were all like 21, 20 years old, and we were playing for a local team, so it just seemed the thing to do. And like I said, Saturday nights, even when I went to Wigan and went to a couple of other clubs after that, it was a thing we'd do. But I think the emergence of the foreign players, that's what I noticed. The higher I went in the leagues, and as the emergence of more foreign players coming in, that kind of changed the culture a little bit.
Were they kind of more committed and more professional, and you thought, shit, keep up with these guys, we're going to have to do the same?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it was just, with more foreign players, obviously, they wouldn't, it's nothing against them, they wouldn't interact as much with the English lads, you know what I mean? They had a different way of doing things. They weren't into that kind of culture a little bit. So in the changing rooms kind of changed as well, you know what I mean? There's a real mix of different players, and I think it's been well documented that, a lot of footballers don't even drink anymore, you know what I mean? If you see some of the top players, and even the ones in the Championship and League One, they don't drink at all. And I think that's down to the foreign influence, you know what I mean? And it is for the better, you know what I mean? As much as some of them days and them nights out I had with the lads and stuff were unbelievable. If I could go back in time, you know what I mean, I probably would look after myself a little bit better, you know what I mean? Definitely.
I think pretty much every player, even at the top level, looking back at that sort of era of football, would say the same. And that was just the way it was. Now is, literally, you've got one of those GPS things on, so they know how hard you're working, how hard you're not working in training and in games, and it's all like, they know what you're eating, they know what you're putting, everything is down to the nth degree. So yes, players get paid a shitload more money now. So yeah, it feels like when I was looking back on the kind of era that you played, it was kind of like it was the last generation of people who could just get away with being normal. But also, I know you were probably paid decent amount of money at the time, but do you ever look at it and go, oh, look, if I'd have had that career 15 years later, I'd have been set for life? Sorry, have I just made you think that for the first time?
Yeah, probably. No, yeah, that's made me depressed. Yeah, I know what you mean. But they are paid extortionate amounts now. But like you said, there was a much more freedom back then. I'm not one of them to kind of look back anymore and with regrets and stuff like that, if I'm honest. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And like I had a half decent career, you know what I mean? I had some fantastic times, and some of them nights out with the lads was part and parcel of it. And like you said, the lads now don't get to do that. You know what I mean? If you see some of these Premier League boys, they play football all year round, don't they? You know what I mean? And I think they really get to enjoy their lives when they retire. But yeah, it is what it is. But like I said, I do wish I was playing now with the money they're on, definitely.
You say you had a half decent career. I mean, that's probably underselling it a little bit. One of my best mates is a manager of the second team of a local football club, and he asked me to come along a couple of times a year when they have their nights out or the club nights, and I watch those lads down there, and they all get on like a house on fire. Like no matter like where they're from, that they've got proper team spirit, and this sounds like what it was when you were going out with the local lads before like the foreign players came in. Do you find that was sort of, you had a better team spirit before? You had to sort of change that kind of way of life?
Yeah, I think my most successful time would have been at Wigan. And that's the kind of culture we had, you know what I mean? Because we were so close, we're such a close knit, and we're predominantly British players, a lot of Scottish and a lot of English players, and that's what it would be. If we won on a Saturday, there'd be like 10 or 12 of us. We'd win together, we'd lose together, but we'd celebrate together as well. And I think that brought us closer together as a team. And I think, we had 2 promotions with them. I think with any successful team, if that close knit and that relationship between the players, that's the most important thing. So them nights out definitely helped us. It's a bonding session as well. That's how you get to know other people, and they all became friends and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to back up what Baz said there. It's like I know you. For those that don't know, I do know. I do know Jason away from football. We cross paths, both working in the fitness industry in Bury. So, and I do know he is a humble man. But no more demonstrated than going, I had an half decent career, mate. You had knocking on 300 professional games, a lot of which were in the Championship. So. So you were talking about Wigan, which, like you say, was probably your most successful time. One of the things I need to talk about, just because I think is amazing, is you played in the same team as Jimmy Bullard.
Yeah.
What was it like playing with him?
Good, really good, but hard work at the same time.
Really?
In a set, you say about playing with him or being off the pitch with him, both.
Both, because he was a class. But people forget he was a class player, and he had a, and you see it now when he's just dicking about in the car park at Soccer AM. He's still got it. He's got a great touch.
Playing with him, he had boundless energy on the football pitch. He would just run everywhere. I don't think I ever really saw him tired, to be honest. He was extremely fit, he had a lovely right foot, and he probably ran too much sometimes,
Yeah.
Because he just had so much energy. He was good to play with, but at the same time frustrating, because we used to play in midfield together sometimes. And sometimes in centre midfield you have to be a bit disciplined, don't you?
Yeah.
So I think I remember one game away at Crystal Palace, because he was always wanting to attack and everything. And I think that Crystal Palace had a corner, and obviously you mark up your players in the corner, don't you? Make sure they don't score. And I'm marking my man, and Jimmy's obviously on the edge of the box, meant to be doing his job at the edge of the box. And obviously, just as they've whipped the ball in, Jimmy's already thinking about the counter attack. You know what I mean? And luckily, it went to the edge of the box, but they didn't score from it. And obviously, I saw Jimmy doing that. I'm thinking, what's he doing? And me and Jimmy started arguing on the pitch, and we started fighting on the pitch, and we had to be split up by our own players.
That's not why I asked the question about Jimmy Bullard, but I'm glad I asked it now, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually had to be split up on the football pitch. A bit like the Lee Bowyer kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't come to blows, but it really nearly did. And somebody had to grab me on the pitch, so I was going to kill him. My temper was still raging. And about 5 minutes later, I got a red card for absolutely smashing somebody, because I was still so angry at Jimmy. Yeah.
So you're trying to tell me that the red card you got in Wigan versus Crystal Palace was not your fault, it was Jimmy Bullard's fault?
It was Jimmy Bullard, because he was too thinking about attacking and stuff. But yeah. But on the pitch, honestly, he was fantastic. His energy levels were fantastic. Yeah.
I'm going to come out with some proper cliche questions throughout this. I promise not all of them are. But who's the best player you've ever played with?
Played with? Ooh. Leighton Baines was good.
Well, yeah.
Very good. Great left foot. You know what? Probably Dean Ashton was very good at Norwich.
Right, I didn't know you crossed paths with him. It's like he was class.
Yes, he really was. And just unfortunate for him, the injuries he had,
Yeah.
You know what I mean, really killed his career, because I think he went to West Ham after Norwich, and I think he was on the verge of going to United, and he had that bad injury playing for England, didn't he, in training? Yeah. So Dean was like 6'3", 6'4", but he had to come in every morning. So we'd go to train in the morning, but he'd have to be in like an hour before just to get his body ready, just to train.
Right.
Because his body was always breaking down on him. And he was fantastic. It was just unfortunate that from like 16, he always had injury issues and stuff like that. And I think actually I think it was Sean Knight Phillips tackled him in England. You know how small Sean Knight Phillips is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And ended up, that was like the start of him having to retire, you know what I mean? Because he finished early, but he was a very good player. And he would have gone all the way, you know what I mean? He would have played for one of the big boys if it wasn't for his injuries.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing as well as part of being a professional player, is that something that's always on your mind, or were you the type of player that just got on with it and if didn't worry about the thing? Because I'm guessing in the modern game, that's probably one of your biggest concerns about ending a career that early, right?
I don't think you think about it when you're playing, to be honest. I think maybe if you have a major injury at the beginning, I think I know a few players who've had knee injuries. You know, when they're younger, then maybe you do think about it and you worry about it. But I never had any major injuries, so it was never really an issue. You know what I mean? So I never went onto the football pitch thinking, oh, I hope I don't get injured or anything like that. I think you just get on with it, to be honest. But I do know a lot of other lads did really think about it. I know Dean thought about it a lot. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I think it'd be difficult to play the way you played as well, because those that don't know, Jay was a midfielder and pretty tough tackling when you needed to be. And
yeah, just went around kicking people.
It's tough to play that position if you're a bit worried about how hard tackling you're going. Particularly when, I know I'm going to sound really old, but back in the day when you could tackle, when tackles were allowed, when football wasn't a non-contact sport like it is now,
Yeah, definitely. We get a yellow card for anything these days, but like you said, back in the day, you were allowed a 50-50, you know what I mean? And there was no such thing as follow-throughs or anything like that. Nobody goes to ground anymore. Even I do a bit of coaching now. Even I'm teaching the kids not to go to ground, not to slide tackle, because you are going to get penalised. It is unfortunate that bit's going out of the game, but it's just the way it is.
I agree 100%. I think it's such a shame because slide tackling is an art.
Oh, that's the same thing, yeah.
There are some class players. I mean, that famous one that Bobby Moore did. Do you know what I mean? If that's still 50 years later, 60 years later, whatever it is, still iconic, and people look back on it and say, "Look how good this tackle is." He'd have got a yellow card for that these days.
Yeah.
The next cheesy, stereotypical question is, and I'm going to write down what I predict the answer is going to be and see if I get it right. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think, who is the best player you've ever played against? And I'm going to Right. I've put my guess down.
Right.
Who's the best player you've ever played against?
There's a Vieira was tough, but it's not Vieira.
For those on the audio podcast, I'm holding up a sign that says Vieira.
But I'm not going to say Vieira though.
I'll cut this bit out then, just because I'm right.
I tell you, he was really, really good as well. Remember Two Guy at Blackburn?
Oh yeah.
He was. He could hit a ball from 45 yards like it was from the edge of the box, couldn't he?
Yeah, he couldn't run. He couldn't really get around the pitch, and we played him in. I think it was a semi-final of the Carling Cup, and I still couldn't get near him. I was 22 at the time, and I still couldn't get near him. He was just 2 steps ahead of me all the time, and I knew he couldn't run. I thought, if I can tackle him, I've got him. You know what I mean? But I just couldn't get near him for some reason. He was just always 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Is that the old cliche of the first couple of the first 5 yards is in your head sort of
definitely thing. But no, the best one was, and it was only a pre-season friendly, it was actually Zanetti.
Wow.
Right back.
Who was that playing for?
Norwich. We played him in pre-season, played Inter Milan in pre-season.
Wow.
And Zanetti was playing right back. We had Darren Huckabee playing for us at the time, who was decent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even though Zanetti was playing right back, he was still the best player by far on the pitch, which was just weird. You know what I mean? They had people like Cambiasso in midfield, Adriano, remember the striker for Brazil?
Yeah.
But Zanetti was just strange, just on a different level. You know what I mean?
It is strange, like you say, that their best player would be right back, because back in the day, right back and left back were just they were just the crappiest players. They just thought, we need to field 11. You go and sit there. Gary Neville. I went to school with Gary Neville, so
yeah.
Gary Neville wasn't even the best player in our school team, so he built a good career on it.
He done well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did well. Like you said, you had a half decent career, is how you phrased it. Obviously overly modest about it, but yeah, to have those memories, to be able to to go tell your grandkids that it's like, you've played against these greats and you've played against teams like Inter Milan. So it must be quite, it must be quite special looking back on it.
I'm going to sound a bit boring now, but I don't really look back at it that much. I think some of my friends say, people, I don't really talk about a football career. Somebody asks me a question, I'll answer it and I'll speak about it, but I don't look back too much and think about it too, you know what I mean? It's just the way I am. I'm trying to think about moving forward and what I want to do moving forward a little bit. But like I said, the memories are always there and stuff, but I don't spend too much time thinking about the past. I
could imagine, though, for anybody who's a sort of young kid watching this back, hearing you talk about some of the players that you played against, for a lot of people, that would be a dream. But obviously, looking back on it, it's like you say, it's something in the past. So, do you ever look back, in certain times and go, like, there aren't many people that would have the same stories that you do to be able to sort of recite like you do, especially the names you just reeled off there.
Yeah, I probably do need to look back with a bit more affection, if I'm completely honest. Maybe I don't fully. I'm not saying I don't fully appreciate it, but it's just something I don't talk about very often. I do try to pass on some of the experiences I've had, with some of the kids, because I do some football coaching sometimes, with one-on-one training. So I kind of try and pass on my knowledge through that, and on how to play and how to develop their game. But yeah, maybe when I'm probably a little bit older and, then I want to tell the grandkids about what kind of career I kind of had. Maybe I'll talk about it a bit more then. But yeah.
I think to your credit, Jay, I think it's a reflection of how humble you are more than anything else. You don't want to seem like it's kind of like showing off and stuff. But there is one thing that I know that we're talking about, obviously, like, there's like us two were just asking you questions like, what's it like being a professional footballer? We wish we were. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's like. But I want to talk about something that is kind of some people might not know about. There were low points as well in your football career. Now, I know people listening to this and watching this, like the idea of this is it's two blokes sat in a pub chatting to someone who's turned up, and mental health. I think I'm a big advocate for the fact that mental health should be one of the things that people talk about in a pub. So I make no apologies for the fact that we're going to talk about this. But yeah, you had some pretty dark times during your football career, and I saw an interview with you where you were saying that you kind of felt guilty about that, and you felt like you couldn't talk to your mates because your mates would have been like us, which is like, oh my God, you play football with all these kind of, what have you got to be sad about is what a lot of people who suffer mental health problems get, even though it's clear that's not what it's about. But do you want to talk us through that a little bit in terms of, I believe it was when you went to Norwich that it really kind of manifested itself, was it not?
Yeah, it kind of did start up when I went to Norwich. I can't pinpoint exactly how it started or where it started, but when I went to Norwich, I very quickly became kind of homesick, and Norwich is a long way from home, from Wigan, and
it's a long way from anywhere, mate.
Yeah, it's miles away, and I felt like it was the wrong move, and I very quickly regretted it, and things kind of started from there, with my mental health and stuff. And like I said, from like back then, there weren't really anybody you could speak to about, and I didn't realise what was going on, because physically I was able to do everything. I was fit, I was strong, but then mentally, when I got onto the football pitch, it was just a blockage, and I just couldn't figure out what to do. And obviously, when you're in a football club, it's all about winning, and it's all about getting the best players on the pitch. So I couldn't really turn to the manager or anything. I didn't know what to say, and how to express myself. And weeks turned into months, and months probably turned into years of me feeling like this. And that's probably one of the reasons why, I know you said about being humble and not talking about my career as much. It's probably because that for a lot of my career, or half of my career, I was kind of like in a very dark place a little bit.
Right. Even
during my career and stuff. And a lot of the things you talk about, all these 300 and odd games, and not many people know about this, is that because I was in such a dark place at certain times. I don't remember most of them games.
Right.
I don't remember most of them moments where I should have done. You know what I mean? Because of this depression. I know obviously not just footballers suffer from, but lots of people do. You know what I mean? It's a disease kind of thing that can really affect lots of people, and that affected me in that sense. So a lot of my career, I don't actually remember because of this.
Wow.
So yeah, there were some really dark moments, definitely. I think at the start of it, when I started my problems with depression and stuff like that, and the mental health, I did hide it really well. So obviously on the football pitch, my games started to kind of go really backwards. You know, I was at one point the best player in the championship, or one of the best midfielders, and Norwich had signed me, you know, give me the number 7 shirt, and they were probably thinking, what have we done here? You know what I mean? What have we signed? Yeah. And all my family and friends around me, I didn't open up to them, but I kept on putting on like a mask, you know what I mean? I was very good at putting on a mask and pretending everything was all right. And the way I did that was just pretend to be happy. You know, I'd buy things that I didn't need. I'd buy fancy cars. I'd show people, you know what, everything's fine. And I'd try and make myself happy by doing that. But really, realistically, I was not in a good place. I think we just got promoted with Wigan to the Premier League. And that was my dream, you know what I mean, to get there. And I finally got there. And then we'd entered like contract negotiations with Wigan. I was going to sign a new 3-year contract, and they'd offered me a new 3-year deal to play in the Premier League. But we couldn't agree, and couldn't agree the contract. And I was very upset with Wigan because the money they was offering, even though it was good money, it wasn't what I thought it deserved. And I made the decision to like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm going to go to Norwich. On lots of advice when people were saying, no, you need to stay at Wigan. I think it started then. When I signed, very quickly, I regretted it. No disrespect to Norwich, it's a fantastic club. But in my hand on heart, I just knew I wasn't meant to be here. And it just started from there.
Are there any systems in place? Probably there are now, but you know, so obviously you signed a contract for a certain period of time. Are there any sort of systems where you can approach somebody and say, look, you know, it's not working out. I need to kind of look at something different. Or are you just stuck in that contract until it ends then?
Yeah, well, I only stayed at Norwich for a year, so I was able to leave and go to somewhere else. But my depression had already started by then, you know what I mean? And it very quickly took hold of me. So by leaving somewhere and going somewhere else, it wasn't going to be solved just by doing that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I needed to really open up and speak to someone about and tell people how I was actually feeling, which I couldn't actually put my... I say now I wish I could have spoke to someone, but I don't know what I would have said. You know what I mean? I remember I used to go to training and train and act as if I was okay, but then I remember going back home and then crying and stuff. You know, that wasn't right. But who was I meant to turn to? Who was I meant to talk to? You know what I mean? I didn't want to tell my family because very much I was a lad from Bury who'd done very well, and you know, I didn't want to complain or anything like that. You know what I mean? I was meant to look after the family. You know, I took that on myself. You know what I mean? My grandparents brought me up, you know, and I was providing for them. I just wanted to make sure, you know, I could provide for them.
I think it's an indictment of the times, because I mean, there's a long way to go, but I mean, we wouldn't have had a conversation like 3 blokes in albeit a pretend pub, but 3 blokes wouldn't have had a conversation about mental health 15, 20 years ago. So thanks for being open with it and chatting about that. The next thing I want to move on to is you went down the route of qualifying as a referee. Now, the reason I find this interesting is people are always saying, "Oh, there should be ex-professionals in you know, as referees and so on." And if people search hard enough, I think there was a BBC documentary about was it a BBC when they followed you when you did your... I think it was...
That was BT Sport. BT Sport.
BT Sport, that's it, yeah. So there was a documentary about when you did it. So I do know a little bit about it, but that was something you were keen to do because you climbed the ranks quite quickly as a referee, and then you kind of came up against a massive obstacle.
Yeah, it was just something that always intrigued me because obviously most footballers go into coaching, That's kind of the route they want to do. But I never fancied that at first. So I think it was about 31. I decided to give this a whirl, because I'd heard people say, listen, we need more professionals, to start refereeing. So, I started out, I think I was still playing on Saturdays. And then I started to referee on Sundays. So you start at like level 8 or something, I think it's level 8. And you try and make your way down to number 1. And yeah, it was an experience. I did that for 5 years, and I think I started right at the very, very bottom. So on a Sunday, I was doing like Sunday league games. Yeah. And if you've ever been to a Sunday league game with the local lads,
lots of times, yeah.
Refs are busy at Sunday league games.
Yes, honestly, like getting paid 22 quid to referee a game on a 10:30 in the morning, because obviously they're talking about ex-players and this stuff, they deserve to be fast-tracked, kind of thing. But I thought, I'm going to do it properly. I want to show these people, I'm serious, and I think it held me in good stead, to do grassroots level, especially at that, because obviously it's. You know exactly what it's about. If you can take abuse from 22 drunk men in the morning, you can handle yourself. So I did that, and I did it for like nearly 5 years, and every single year I was getting promoted.
Yeah.
And I was really excited about the prospect of, breaking through, and hopefully, getting to where I wanted to be.
Can I ask, did you do this locally?
Yeah, it was locally, Preston, all over Lancashire, to be honest.
Yeah.
As I moved up the levels, you have to go like, you go up the leagues and stuff like that. So I think I ended up, and at the same time, you have to be a linesman as well, an assistant.
Yeah.
So I'd referee on a Saturday sometimes, or I'd be an assistant on a Saturday at a higher level. So yeah, all over Lancashire.
I'm assuming at some point somebody would have recognised you as former sort of Bury player Jason Jarrett, but now running the line.
Yeah, nearly everywhere I went. I think nearly every club I went to, they knew who I was and stuff like that. And when I was obviously refereeing, it did I'm not saying it helped. Yeah, I think it did help actually, because obviously they knew, right, well, he knows the game, he's played the game. I think a lot of players think that referees don't actually know the game. They might know the rules, a lot of them do, which is great, but there's a difference between knowing the game and knowing the rules. I only think you have to do a bit of both. So when I speak to referees, I'm always thinking you need to be able to play the game a little bit. Not saying play the game to any degree, but you should play the game as well. You know what I mean? Even if you're a grassroots player or anything like that, you've got to understand what a tackle is and how you get tackled and stuff. So yeah. So when I went to games and stuff, I think I got instant respect because they'd known I'd played at a decent level.
Yeah, no one can turn around to you and go, "What do you know, ref? You don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, some of them did. Don't worry about that.
I think as a
give us what all of us want, which is a Bury Football Club playing back at Gig Lane at whatever. Nobody cares what level it is for the time being. So as a Bury fan, and I know you've been to some Bury AFC matches because I've seen and heard you interviewed. As I'm watching them from afar being streamed, which is brilliant, to be fair, because I never used to be able to watch Bury games, but now I can watch all the Bury AFC games as long as